Welcome to Okta Workflows online meetup. My name is Max, and I do everything community education for Okta Workflows. And today's topic is discover 15 Okta Workflows tips. I had 10 originally, but as I was preparing for this meetup, I saw there are more than 10, and so I decided to actually cover 15. Um, so that's the plan for today. So this event is being recorded, and then the recording will be available tomorrow on the Okta Workflows YouTube playlist. You will also receive a message tomorrow with the link to the recording. Um, what else? If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat or in the Q&A panel. And I think that's it. Now I do have one more slide just to show you all the tips, but I just wanted to include it in the meetup. But I'll return to this at the end. It's going to make a lot more sense than just looking at these pictures. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go to workflows. Let me just quickly check. I don't see any questions. Okay. And let's open this flow. So this is identify an active Okta user. There's actually a template that you can add to workflows. And I'm going to open this flow. So we're not going to build really anything. I'm just going to show you what I like to call tips or tricks, and also what I use as a build automation. And I think I opened the wrong flow. I want to open this one. Okay. So the first tip is also just before I start, you might know already these tips, and you already use them. But again, I figured I'll just cover everything I find very, very useful again as a build flows. Okay, so the first one is that you can pin the first card, right here. So this one is a helper flow, but if this was an event card or a schedule card, you could also pin this. So what this does is that it allows you to kind of move in the flow with the first card being pinned. So usually what this is useful where is, let's look at this very last card here. And there are some fields, ID, login, and so on. And if I scroll, so what you need to do is you need to take this ID and connect it here. So let me actually delete these values, right? Something like this. So what you will usually do is you take the ID and you kind of have to scroll to the side, and you kind of drop it like this, right? So this works. This is not a very long flow, but I'm certain you have longer flows and just kind of gets not very comfortable to drag. So this is where the pinning the first card is very useful, is that you can pin and then you can kind of move throughout the flow, and then you just take the ID and map it like this. And then this is what usernames or something like this. And the last one, the only thing is these lines kind of get all, I don't know. But this is how this works. If you need to, you can also just kind of turn off the lines and just kind of make it maybe a little bit, I don't know, they're not in the face as you scroll. And then you can turn them back on. I guess this is another tip. All right, so that was tip number one. Very straightforward, is that you can pin this card, and if you want to keep it, that's fine. Or if you want to just make the connections and then unpin it, that's also totally works. All right, so tip number one is pinning the first card to make it more straightforward for creating mappings. All right, tip number two is, let me just actually show you. So I'm going to delete these again. All right. So first I showed you can get these values from the from the first card. In this case, this is the helper flow card. But what you can also do, instead of sort of pinning or even just dragging the entire flow, if there's like this last login, if there is last login that appears closer to the card, you can actually use it. Like you don't need to go all the way to the original place where this field first appeared. So looking at last login, like in the first example, I connected it all the way from the first card, but you can take last login, and connect it like this, right? So again, I called it, connect the field that's closest. I know maybe there's a better name, but that's how it works. So let me show you again. So, one way is again to just drag and drop from here. Another option is to just pin this card, which is more straightforward. Or if I have the last login here, which is much closer, then I can just do something like this, right? And then for like user ID, so yeah, it's not anywhere, it's not any closer. So yeah, then pinning would be the way to go here. But anyhow, the second tip is anytime you see a field that you need to map and it's closest to the card, you can go ahead and connect it. Like again, I use this quite a lot in my flows. All right. So that's tip number 2 is again connecting a field that's closest. The third tip is renaming output fields. So looking at this card, so this calculates a number of days, and you can see the default name is rounded. So if I was to add a new card, well, let me see, round, right? So it says rounded here, and it is then mapped here. So this name is fine, but it doesn't really give a lot of context, like what is happening. So what I always advise to do is renaming this, and then to do that is you put the mouse over the field, and then there's a little arrow, and then you select customize, and you can give it a more meaningful name, like days, for example, and then click save. And then notice right here, it changes here as well. So you just change it in one place, and it changes everywhere. Another place where we probably use this card a lot is the compose card, and the default, we can do something like this, and the default name is output, which is again maybe fine for a very short or small flow, but if you have multiple compose cards, so what you would do is you would go to customize and maybe change it to email message. All right. And so now this is a lot more, has a lot more context. And also just when I said that if you rename this, it will change all the places. So let me just show you, just to say I want to rename days since login, for example. And then I click save, and then right here is updated. And then right here is updated as well. All right. Cool. So this was tip number, looking at my list here. Tip number 3 is renaming output fields. Tip number 4 is actually no tip. Yes, tip number 4 is using the help icon, which is right here. Like I use it a lot, and then if you click the little, it opens a help window or a card for this particular card, and so you can kind of read what it does, and then every help window will be divided into several sections. There's the options, there is the input section, and then also there is the output. Now the options in this particular card is, let me close this. Options is what you see here. So some cards will have options where you can, in this case, this is the table, so this is the option. If I click on the number, right, so it's going to give me just what this card does, the input and the output, and some also docs will have some examples. So I use it all the time. So again, I advise you to use it as well. Again, if you're ever wondering like what this little question mark does, is that it opens the help window for the particular card. All right. So that's tip number 4 is, get the cards documentation. Tip number 5 is you can rearrange or drag and drop cards. Now, it's very common to kind of build the flow like you add a card here and then just, you add a card after the last one. But also you can insert cards in between. So just click the plus sign and then this will allow you to add actions. This will allow you to add functions, and this allows you to add a note card. But this particular tip is that you can drag and drop cards. So if let's say this compose card, I want to move it before table, you can just take the card and move it like this, right? So again, maybe, I'm sure most of you knew this, but in case you didn't, this is a useful tip where you can just kind of drag and drop cards and you don't need to sort of delete them or anything. Like this one, I already, because the day since appears after, so it gives me an error, so I can just kind of move it back. And then the error goes away. All right. Anyhow, so this is tip number 5, is that using, you can drag and drop cards. I think that's it for this flow. So let me actually, my next tip uses a different flow. Actually, it's here. Okay. So this one. This is kind of a tip, but it also a new capability that was introduced several months ago, and that's copying a card or duplicating a card. So I got a flow here, I got an event card, and then I'm using the Okta read user card to just get information about the user, and then I have a compose card. So now there is a duplicate or copy function, so I'm going to click it here. And so what's new is the options that you see here. And then there's keep all mappings, and then do not keep any mappings. Now, so this was available before. So this was available for a long time. Do not keep any mappings. Like you wouldn't get this window. It would just automatically default to this. So let me show you how this looks. And I'm going to click duplicate. And then it will duplicate the card, but then it will just not have any mappings. And it's like, oh, now I have to kind of redo this. So it was not very convenient, right? So let me show you this again. I copy and then duplicate and then nothing, all the mappings. So the new capability is I now can do keep all mappings. And notice what happens now is that it actually keeps all the mappings. So this is very nice because it saves a lot of time. Okay, so again, this is a new feature, a new capability, but also a tip, I think. So you can now copy cards and keep the mappings. All right. Now, the other part of this tip is, let me go to a different flow. And let me open this card. Now, if before you could copy like a card like compose or most other cards, if you had a card like if else and other similar cards where you have branches, like you would not even be able to copy. Like this didn't exist at all. Like you couldn't copy, right? Not even without mappings, like that was not possible. But now what happens is that if I click duplicate, I do get the same 2 options. I can duplicate, and I get this, but I of course don't have any mappings, which is again not very convenient because it's there's a lot of stuff I need to redo. So let me delete this, and now you can copy, and this is the keep all mappings, and you actually get to keep everything. All the mappings are there, which is super convenient. Like this was this could take a lot of time to redo all the mappings. But even just before, right? Like you wouldn't even able to copy this card. Like that functionality didn't exist. So there are 2 really things. You can copy these if else type cards, and plus you can keep the mappings, right? So that's tip number 6, is that you can copy cards and keep the mappings. Okay, so tip number 7 is, let me have a different flow for that. And that's where you can show and hide fields. So actually I need to go back here. And let me look at this comment here. See, there is a most exciting copy and paste since the iPhone. Yes, yes. It definitely saves, will save time when building flows. I want to use this flow. Okay. Again, this flow doesn't really do anything. It's just some cards, so don't worry about the actual logic. But so this is tip number 7, is that the ability to show and hide field. So I'm looking at this card read user, and when you add the card for the first time, let me do this. When I read user. So what you see is the card will show you the inputs and the outputs, and this is where you can select which fields to show. There are some default fields. So what I can do is I can uncheck all these fields. Like I don't want to see them, for example. And maybe I just want the username, first name, and last name, and I'm gonna click save. And then this is how this looks, right? And then I enter some ID here, right? If you ever need to return, maybe you can use this card, but so you can click this gear and then choose fields. And then you can again decide which fields to show or hide. But let me just, did I have these fields checked? I don't remember now. Let me check. Okay, okay. So anyhow, so now you can, hide the fields that you don't need or don't want to really see on the flow. You can hide the fields. Now the same works for input fields. Like this one only has one input, so there's no way I can, unhide it because it's required. But let me delete this card. But let's look at another card. Well, actually, let's look at this card. Let's use it with search and choose fields. And then you can see the inputs. This has, a lot more inputs that I can maybe, and same thing, right? So I like to hide the fields that I don't use, just to make it, I don't know, just look better, I think, when, you have fields, well, when, you don't see fields that the card doesn't use or you don't need to. But this is tip number 7, is that the ability to show and hide fields. Tip number let's see, 8, and again, this is maybe more of a feature, but is that the ability you can test cards. You can test cards individually, and so every card will have this run this card button, and then I can click run. And it says run because you're not really, I mean, you could say testing, but you're actually running the card. So whatever the card does, it will actually execute it. So that's why it says run. As you can see, I have some user ID here, and then it just shows me the properties. And if I enter something that's incorrectly, I run the card, and then I get an error. So you probably know about this, but if you didn't know, then I highly encourage you to use this capability or this tip to test the cards. As you build the flow, I like testing cards individually. So this is super, super helpful. So that's tip number 8, is testing the card. Now, number 9 is collapsing the card's output. And let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to use this list user research. I'm going to add a new card. So from the Okta connector, and then I'm going to list user research. And so I'm going to select maybe this as an option. and I'm going to keep everything as is. And then if I scroll down, this is the output. And I'm going to click save, right? So this is how it looks. So what I like to do, and this is a very minor tip, but once you kind of tested this card and maybe you most likely you're gonna send this to like a for each card, what I like to do is you can just collapse this. I think this makes it look more, I don't know, more friendly. If you can, you know, not see this whole list, right? So it will be something like this, right? And if you had like a for each card, um, so it would still work like you do something like this. Anyhow, I like it. This allows you to do that, and this works for any list that you should be able to collapse it like this. So um, that's tip number. Let me delete this. That's tip number 9. That's collapsing the card's output if it's a list. Tip number, let's see, 10 is markdown in the notes card. So this is a note card, and to add a note card, you can click this little green icon. You can also add a note here. But what's really cool is that you can see this is formatted, right? And so you can use actually Markdown to format this. And if you click the card itself, you can see how it switches to kind of the code view, I guess. And so you can format. So, just in general, using note cards is very encouraged. So you can, kind of explain what the flow does for other people who are going to be returning or building the flow, and also for yourself. And using Markdown allows you to kind of organize and format the information, so it's even more straightforward to read and understand what is happening, right? So that's tip number 10, and that's Markdown in the notes card. Now, tip number, let's see, 11 is adding a tooltip to a field. So I got this card here, search system logs, and I got the field. And notice what I have here. I have a little question mark, what it says. So this is the event, unique, I think it's universal unique ID as seen in the system log. Okay. And how would you create this is that if I click the gear and I click edit card, and then every field now has a little pencil, you can click the pencil. And so there's a help text. You can write, like a tooltip about what this field does. So this is super useful if you want to kind of give more information, more context about what is happening. Okay. So if I wanted, for example, display message, like I want to add some more information. I can say this, I don't know, this is the message you want to send later. I don't know, just, okay. And you click OK, and then you click save, and then you can see someone can put the mouse over and they can kind of get more information about what the field does. All right. So I think this is a great tip. Again, it's kind of a little bit hidden, but I think this is super useful to give more information, more context about how the card works. So that's tip number 11, is adding a tool tip to a field. Now, let's see. Tip number 12 is searching for cards. And this is most likely you are already doing this, but in case not. So when you add a card, you got these categories that you can just go into. But what I like to do is you can just search for the card. So for example, if you want to do list construct, it will find the card for you. Now, one thing you have to be just a little bit careful is that there are actually 2 construct cards, one in the list from the list category and then from the object. So you want to make sure you select the right one. Okay. And so, for example, when you do like for each, that's a very common card. So actually there are 3. There's one ignore errors, and there are 2. There's for each for a list, and then for each for an object, right? So just kind of be careful which one you select. But I use this all the time for searching, so you kind of don't have to, go into the category and find it. And this also works for connectors. So for example, list users, if you kind of know what you're looking for, then you can also search in the um, actions. But it also works if I do the actual connector. So if I'm searching for Google, it will show me all the connectors that um, have the Google in the name, right? So that's tip number, let's see, 11. I'm sorry, no, that's 12, searching for cards. Okay, now let me save this and let's exit. The next one um, is drag and dropping flows and folders. And the ability to drag and drop a flow existed for some time, but the folders is a newer one. But let me show you how to do with flows first. If you want to take a flow, so I'm in the December 2025 folder. I'm going to take this read user and maybe I can move it to folder 2, right? And so it just moves, right? And now I have this read user right here. And so again, this existed for some time, but the ability to drag and drop folders, that's a newer capability. And so if I can take this folder, for example, and let's move it into search, right? So, right, and so, oh, did I move it here? Oh, yeah, it is here. Folder 2, yes. So it's right here. So, um, anyhow, so you can now drag and drop folders. So that's, if you need to reorganize or just organize your flows with folders, it's a little bit more straightforward. So I can take folder now, move it back into December, and I move the entire folder, right? So that's tip number 13 is the ability to drag and drop flows and folders. Okay. Tip number um, 14. Let me see. Okay, it's here. I moved and now I forgot where my flow is. So this one, um, um, again, I don't know if this is like a tip, but I actually didn't realize it was there. So if you have a scheduled flow, and you need to get the time, right? So what I did before is like, okay, I had a scheduled flow and then I went and I did, and then I needed to get the current time and I did this, right? And this worked, of course, but then I realized, oh, but their actually current time is here. So, right, this is the time when this flow runs. So you don't necessarily need an extra card to get the current time. Now, you might still need to do this for whatever reason, that's fine. But if you need to get the current time, it's already here. So it will save you a card. Anyhow, this is something I ran into myself, so I figured I'll share it. But, I'll let you decide if this is a tip or maybe it's not a tip. But so that's number 14. And that's, you can get time from the scheduled card. And the last one, this is actually pretty handy. Let me save this and go to another folder. And so I have, let me go back. Well, that's fine. Let me show you. Why not? Anyhow, I have this JSON with some products that I generated, and then I send them to a helper flow. Let me open this. And I ran this flow several times. And I'm going to go to execution history, and I got executions. And what you can do you can search text within the execution. So sometimes it's very handy when you have a lot of executions and you need to find just one particular execution. So let's say I want to find, looking here, like USB-C, like I'm searching for executions that have USB-C. So I can go here and type USB-C, and then it shows me all the executions. And then if I select, it will actually highlight the execution, right? So this is pretty neat. You can do that. So this one doesn't show text because I added the text compose later, but right. And then if I do desk, for example, let's see, it's going to find more here. And then again, it just kind of highlights the the keyword that I was searching for. All right. So this is very useful, when you need to find a lot of executions and you're looking for a particular execution. Just few other things from this view is that you can also sort of filter, by the, by different success sort of results, right? If it's an error execution, you can just look at those, and so on. And there's also a date. So if you know that this happened on this date, then you can actually kind of narrow down. So this is pretty useful. Again, we have a lot of executions, and you need to find something during a specific time frame. So that's number 15, and that's search execution history, and that's all the tips. Let me see. I think there was. Let me see if there are any questions. I don't see any real questions, but thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, if you folks, and I'm sure you do, if you have any tips, please send them to me. I'm gonna show my email in just a sec. I'll have another session like this with tips from the community, next year. But now, I do want to show you just this card again, this slide again, just so it's in the recording. But now hopefully this makes just a little bit more sense. So the first one is pin the card, connect to the closest field, renaming output fields, docs, drag and drop, rearranging cards, or drag and drop cards, copying cards with mappings, showing and hiding fields, testing cards, collapsing cards output, Markdown, tooltip, searching for cards, drag and drop folders, time from the schedule card, and search the execution history. All right. So again, hopefully this now makes more sense. And yeah, let me actually go to the previous slide. So again, if you want to see, my email is here, and I can also put it in the chat. If you want to send me tips, again, I'll be happy to do another session like this next year. I did one session like this. It was, I think, 2022 now, maybe 23. So it's on our YouTube playlist. So you can kind of go back, and so there's some overlap, but they also included new stuff. So check it out. And as I said, this is being recorded, and you'll have a link to the recording tomorrow. Well, very cool. Thank you, folks, for joining. I wish everyone a very happy holidays and happy New Year. And thank you for joining all our meetups this year. And we will continue hosting these meetups next year. And if you have any ideas for topics, please let me know. Other than that, thank you, and I will see you next year. Bye-bye.